set list on this. Oh, yeah. And Councillor Hocking and Natasha started as a meeting with BIM, TransLink, PC Ferries, and School District 45 to advocate for student commuters. That's probably not a right now.
I think Natasha has been working on that.
I think, Steph, do we have that later on in the agenda?
That'll come up in your staff update, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tyler Davenport to send Natasha notes in the previous BIM, BC Ferries, and TransLink meeting, which I think I did. After Steph kindly reminded me.
Okay.
Staff organized a walkabout on the proposed waterline route of the multi-use path.
And by the way, I gave Gary Anders some flagging tape, so he's supposed to flag the path.
So
Patrick said he already did flag the path, or part.
He did
part of it.
flag the path. I can speak to a little bit about that. I'm not sure if we have a section on that stuff. Remind me if I'm wrong.
There is a path update for Patrick.
So, okay, yeah, we'll do that then.
Okay, so then moving on to 5, business arising from the minutes. There's the electric vehicle charging station.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry again that my video is not working. But I will just say kind of a quick reminder. So the recommendation, well, I guess first and foremost, thank you everyone for reviewing the report. And as a reminder, the recommendation as described in the staff report was primarily based on the jurisdictional scan of 10 municipalities in Metro Vancouver and 10 rural municipalities with similar populations as Bowen Island. And so I did consult with Flow, the service providers, who emphasize that rate standardization and rate implementation, was highly recommended. And I did want to kind of touch back on what was mentioned last meeting. So I was given the wrong information and initially mentioned that the EV stations were operational. So this was inaccurate, as after the meeting, I was able to get a hold of the electrician who let me know that BC Hydro still needed to come to Island to connect the stations to the electrical grid. So that said, BC Hydro did come late last week, so they are now connected, but the stations remain decommissioned as we need to get council approval for the user fee rates. So once we get approval, I'll have the electrician come by and set them up. One more thing I guess I'd like to bring up is as the report is being presented to council, I did circulate it to staff. And one comment that came back was in relation to a parking space concern. So since I wasn't around for the initial consultation or site location approval, I'm kind of putting it out to BIMTAC, but I was wondering whether the idea of reverting the EV site back to a regular parking spot, so after kind of the 9 to 5 hour restriction at the library lot, whether this was ever brought forward in discussion, and if it was, is this something BIMTAC is likely to support?
I'm not sure what you mean, Natasha. Sorry.
No, that's totally okay. So in a sense, so the recommendation was we're having the user fee rates at the library site because of the 9 to 5 hour restriction, because by law, those are the only timeframes that they can actually regulate, right? To make sure that people aren't surpassing, let's say, the 3 hour mark for the parking.
It's a 3 hour limit, yeah.
The 3 hour limit, yeah. And so there was comment about after 5 o'clock that the parking space be reverted back to a regular parking space.
You mean just?
So the EV.
You can stay as long as you want.
Exactly.
Oh.
So I'm just wondering whether or not this was brought forward to BIMTAC in the past, or.
I think we touched on that a bit last time, talking about overnight and making it like, I thought that was part of the, I just remember, but I don't know if we actually decided anything.
I'm still not sure what you mean, Natasha. So you mean that after 5 o'clock or whatever it was time you just said,
Yep.
then, I mean, if people, so it could just become a regular parking spot and not for charging?
Exactly.
Oh,
So that was one of the concerns, because I suppose the library lot is losing a parking spot. And so
Yeah.
at night, when people are coming to the Snug Cove, the idea is that there's no longer a parking spot because of the EV charging station. People will be utilizing that station if they have an EV vehicle or EV vehicle.
but they're only, I mean, yeah, although somebody who's coming down to have dinner in the Cove or whatever might want to charge as well.
Right.
And yeah,
I think it should just be an EV spot. I think if you make it back and forth, it's going to get too confusing.
Too complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should be an EV spot. I mean, that's what it is, right?
I agree. The only good thing about having it for everyone is it, unless people do follow the 3-hour rule, is you get people charging overnight in all the EV stations, and they just leave their car there. And there's got to be a way that that's not going to be allowed.
Yeah. So that is challenging, right? Because staff aren't there and there's no security overnight.
they're not enforcing it in the middle of the
Yeah.
night.
I guess I think this is one spot with 2 chargers, or is this 2 spots?
Yeah, good question.
Technically, it's one spot with 2 chargers.
I don't think we're going to see that much usage. And I think we might get a negative public opinion if there's an EV charger sitting empty too often.
Right.
I think that if there's a time limit, I'd almost be in favor of it not being restricted to EV vehicles and just let the time limit force the turnover or some other hybrid model. I guess if it's used, I wouldn't object to it, but if we have a parking spot sitting empty for a large portion of the time, I don't think that'll be seen as positive. It's like absolutely prime parking spot in a very limited availability. And as kind of a group, like the municipality and BIMTAC, we're kind of promoting, maybe not promoting, but the parking has been disappearing very quickly.
Very, yeah.
So I think that unless it's needed a lot by EVs all the time, I go for minimal restriction.
I tend to agree that losing a parking spot could, for this purpose, and it would be empty almost all the time, if not all the time for the next while, could be tough for us, and it would sort of, yeah.
I think one of the original discussions, I think we talked about, having a short time limit and less charging or something like that. I don't remember the details, but having a 15-minute limit and less charging and making it a high turnover spot, and then having the fee on top of that would allow it to at least see use for people running into the library or the Snug. And then if somebody needs it for 3 hours to charge, then they could make use of the chargers.
That's a good idea. It's a good way. So a 15-minute or whatever, something short like that, which means you're coming in, you're grabbing something from one of the shops or whatever, and then you're leaving, or you're dropping books at the library, picking something up. So how do we do that? We'd say a 15-minute parking unless you're charging.
And then it's a 3-hour limit.
And then it's a 3-hour limit.
Okay. So yeah, it has to do with the signage. So that's something that I will have to bring up. Okay.
Yeah. And of course, it's going to be hard to enforce because nobody's checking, you know,
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
every 15 minutes. But nevertheless, that would help us. That would make it look like we're being as fair and useful as possible. If it's abused, probably doesn't matter for the next while. But after a while, when more people have electric cars and will be charging at that spot rather than home, then yeah.
Then using it as a parking spot, yeah. Okay. Okay, great. That's really helpful. Thank you.
But I've got one more question about it, Natasha, because it's a gravel parking lot. Normally, if it was paved, you'd have that spot painted. But how do we even show that it's a spot?
So we'll be purchasing some signs.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the signs on the library side currently?
I believe they say 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they were shorter for the library itself. They just parking for the library on that right-hand side. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. It does just say library parking only for those first couple of spots on the right. But I don't know if there's a time. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember seeing a time on it. But it definitely said library parking.
So I just want to put this to Wendy as the only one amongst us, I think, who has an electric car.
No, I think Tyler has one.
Yeah, but it's a hybrid, right?
Oh, is it?
Well, it's a
I have a fully electric car, yeah.
fully electric. So would you be wanting to use that from time to time, that spot?
The only time I would is if I was coming back to the island and I was so low on charge that I wouldn't be able to get home without doing it. And the amount of times that might happen might be once a year.
Right.
Okay.
So very rarely.
Yeah.
It would more be a convenience for me if I was low and say I wanted to visit some people on the other side of the island, you know, and my car doesn't go that far into charge. It's not like one of these ones that goes almost 400K. So it would be helpful for that. But honestly, I don't think I'll use it very much.
Yeah.
I see it more as a gesture.
I agree.
Showing that Bowen is concerned about allowing electric cars on the island or providing for electric cars on the island, people visiting with their electric cars.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I think most people who own an electric car on this island will charge at home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So do we need, like, Tyler's solution, the idea of having that spot seen as, 15-minute parking or charging, and with a limit of 3 hours? Do we need to vote on that or do something, or?
So we have a ratification of the
Oh, yeah.
resolution that was voted by email. You could add, and that a hybrid model be employed wherein the parking spot have a 15-minute limit unless charging when the limit would be 3 hours.
Yeah. That sounds good
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, that sounds.
I'm in favor of that.
Okay,
You wanna
I'll
say
move it.
or
I'll move it. I'll move that then, that amendment.
Okay,
Do I second?
and Tyler, you call all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay,
All opposed?
friendly group.
Yeah. Okay, great. Good idea, Tyler. Thanks.
Is there a student transportation update?
Yeah, what's next?
Natasha? Well, if Patrick is here, if Natasha's having technical difficulties, Patrick may be able to do his update until
Can you not hear me?
there you are.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. All right. So I ended up having a follow-up meeting with the parents, Jeremy and Melissa, who presented last TAC meeting about the transportation concern. which was really productive. And I also chatted with a Rockridge secondary student who was very helpful and clarified a few things. In terms of moving a service adjustment request forward, I was able to connect with TransLink actually this morning. So I spoke to the staff members who were responsible for scheduling and service and resource planning. And the meeting involved really just discussing the possibility of the schedule requests as discussed by Melissa and Jeremy. And I will be following up with them individually. But given it's actually the District of West Vancouver who contracts out TransLink within the 262 route, like that area, TransLink is going to assess whether it's a feasible option to provide what they call like a school tripper, which is a blue bus service, which would incorporate a few smaller buses, that shuttle the kids directly from Caulfield Station to Horseshoe Bay during the Tuesday and Thursdays when the students have their X block. So I'm anticipating to hear back from TransLink in a week or two as they need to consult with the District of West Vancouver. So I'm hopeful we'll have a reasonable solution within that time frame.
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good news.
We hope.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, they seemed amenable. It was a productive meeting. So
Great. Thank you so much, Natasha.
mm-hmm.
Well, that was easy.
Steph.
Months of grumbling.
If you could see my
Here
face.
she comes to save the day.
Okay, yeah, that's all from me there.
Good. And then staff update from Patrick.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I guess as we discussed last time, the hope was that we would be able to do a site visit, or at least have the route flagged out and have people see it for themselves and reconvene for some further discussion. It's in terms of getting permission from the property owners, because it does involve trespassing on 4 private properties, well, 5 including the camp. Natasha's been working on that, and we haven't got that permission yet, and I would feel a lot more comfortable if we do first. I have flagged a rough alignment from Artisan essentially up to Charlie's Lane. For the most part, that's on our property. That's in Terminal Creek Park. It does cross over the camp, a corner of the camp property, which isn't anywhere near anything they do. And it also crosses over Jeff Dempsey's property, who I think is the one property owner who was seemed to be on board and had given us permission to check it out. But really, until we have some further discussions with the property owners and we have them on board for at least us to go and visit the site, I think we would we'll defer that, and we'll let Natasha update us as it warrants. The one sort of pressing aspect is so just past Artisan, going up the hill on Grafton Road, there's a 600 millimeter diameter steel culvert that's failed, and it's pretty bad. Like there's a significant void under the road, and the culvert has slumped. It needs to be done this year, and we're planning to do it. It does involve planning for the path, and at the moment we're planning for a design where the path is essentially down at the bridge level. There's a bridge sort of down below the road where that culvert is. If you're in the, and it matches with the flagged alignment. So that is one decision that we'll have to make, fairly soon. Ideally, if we can't, then we have to change the approach. That's fine. But that definitely has to be done this year. That piece, that culvert replacement. So not really much has advanced on the design beyond that since last month. So until we can all do a site visit, as well as our staff and council, it's going to be difficult to make this critical decision.
I'd like to speak to that then, Patrick. I think if you have a deadline, then let's make sure that we make this decision before the deadline, so we don't end up having to dig something up that we've just done or something. But I just want to offer one other update. So in one of my regular meetings with Liam, I talked about this issue, and I talked about the meeting that we had, our last meeting, where I thought what was really your point, Tyler, that you made, that having the route along the road, that serves commuters, and that's about it. But having the route go through this valley and go to Grafton Lake, it actually serves the whole island, because people now have a new terrific route that they can take from Snug Cove to be able to go to Grafton Lake. And so it really serves more of a purpose than just for cycle commuters. And when I mentioned that to Liam, he was really interested, and he really thought that was a really interesting point, that if we're going to spend all this money, you better make sure it's something that really serves as much of the island as possible, and is really, it's a really great addition to the kinds of things that we have on the island, rather than simply, just an addition to the, for the people like me who are cycling to the cove to get a bottle of milk or a case of beer or whatever. So anyway, that I think I really appreciated the discussion we had last time, and also then the discussion with Liam about it. And so I'd like to take that to council. This is also the cheapest of the three routes, at least with the rough estimates that we have. So I'd like to move that to council as soon as possible. So some council members I know have walked the full route. I'm not sure how many, but it's one of the interesting parts would be to do the flagged part. I mean, I'll just go do that by myself, because that sort of gives you a sense of what the valley is like and how pretty it is down there. And the rest of it follows basically a line that we already have, the waterline route that many council members are roughly familiar with anyway. So I'd make sure, Patrick, if you need a decision on this, that we push it somehow and figure out a way of doing it.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with that. I mean, the flagged route, I mean, technically there is some trespass, but it doesn't really feel like it, because, it's on parts of others' property that they have really nothing to do with.
Yeah.
And so once you get, and that's really also the unknown commodity, right? Like, okay, well, going from Artisan along that south side of the ravine, until you link up with essentially the waterline route and out to Charlie's Lane. I mean, once you cross the bridge at Charlie's Lane, it's essentially you're following up the Connolly, the south side of the Connolly Creek ravine, which is a sort of a roughed in path. And it's all very flat past there until you get to the the old chlorination shed. And then from there, you're following the road past the treatment plant. So I think, but if there's, and maybe, because it's not, officially sanctioned, maybe it is better just to, if people want to go and, follow the flags on their own whenever they can, as opposed to an organized group. Maybe that's better. I'm okay to organize a group too, if you'd rather do that. I think it's technically there's some trespass, but I don't think it's a big deal.
In Camp Isle, I mean, it's so far, it's, they're never going to go there in the next 50 years. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you cross Jeff Dempsey's property, and he's he's provided permission from what I understand. You actually do, like Charlie's Lane itself and the bridge is actually on the next property over. And I believe Natasha's spoken to them and they had some concerns and wanted more information and dialogue.
Yeah, so I can kind of chime in there. I spoke to Jeff Dempsey. They were open. We can certainly go on their property. Everyone else, however, I wouldn't recommend us going on their property until we have their permission. I have a property owner coming in tomorrow, and I have another property owner coming in next week. So I think just moving forward, like in terms of the consultation piece, I think it's really important that, you know, we provide them with the information so that they feel as if they are equally involved and we're not just, you know, going on their property. So I would not recommend trespassing.
I agree. Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right, Natasha.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would just walk down that angle down and not even get to anybody's property. I wouldn't go up Charlie's Lane. I just kind of work my way down towards the creek, follow the flagging, and then walk back up.
Yeah, I mean, there's one piece like with the water main, I believe, because there's a statutory right of way with the municipality, like staff are essentially, you know, we're permitted to walk that route. But in terms of bringing members of the public, even council members, it's a little more of a gray area, right?
Yeah, so keep us informed as to when we can actually go to.
For sure. Yeah. So.
I'm glad you're meeting with all these folks. That's great.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay. Well, super. I'm very pleased with the way this is moving forward. I think this will be a huge asset for the community. It costs a heck of a lot of money and it'll take us a few years to do it.
But I think the point that you made there with, you know, if you're going to spend $3 million plus on a 1.5 kilometer of path, you know, better to be something epic than widening the road. That's, I think, the perspective you were providing.
And I think too that when you put it in the perspective of the 20-year transportation plan, best to spend the money now making this island accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
In a good way like that.
I want to add a little bit more that's related. So a couple of days ago, I forget, Thursday or Friday, something like that, had a meeting. There was a presentation by the Minister of Environment, Provincial Environment and Climate Change, and the Community Energy Association, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs, a new minister. And then there was a meeting. Then we broke off into little groups talking about some of the different issues. And I focused on the transportation. And there's no question that the province is really keen on the whole providing active transportation alternatives. There's going to be money for that for the next good while. I went into a meeting, online meeting with, and I need to follow up on this, and I can't remember her name. She was a councillor from Powell River, and she had worked. They've ended up. They got a whole lot of money. They've got this sort of a leadership program, I guess, in a sense, on active transportation with the province and with the municipality. And the way she did it, the way she got everybody really keen, was working with the kids and providing it. This provides sort of freedom for kids who are too young to drive. If they've got proper safe bike routes, you know, they're not stuck at their home until their parents can drive them somewhere. And so the whole idea of it being, Wendy, I kind of picked up from what you were saying, is it's really providing alternatives so that people can move around in different ways and they're not just stuck waiting for their parents if they're kids, or you know, if they don't have a car, or there's only one car in the family, or whatever. So I just think there's some real opportunities on the whole active transportation side tied to the province's climate change plans, and also TransLink as well, who are also interested in funding things like that.
Yeah, and so the sooner we can get, you know, make some decisions and get some designs completed to the point where there, you know, there's a project that you can submit for these grants that keep emerging, then the better our chances.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I guess that's all we've, in terms of an update, that's all we've got from last month.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Yeah, and
Thank you.
Natasha.
Patrick.
The next item is a council and committees update from Councillor Hocking.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got anything else that I can add that's come out of council particularly. I should be scratching my head before the meetings thinking of something, but now I'm drawing a blank other than the stuff I just said.
Just a placeholder, don't feel pressured.
Right, but have we done something that I should be talking about that you can think of? Definitely everything.
Climate action strategy you've been
Yeah,
working on.
we're working on a climate action strategy. There's a subcommittee of the Environment and Climate Action Advisory Committee, and there'll be parts of that will focus on transportation, no question, but we're still working on that.
Okay. Item 7 is new business or other business. I don't think we have anything.
That's just a placeholder as well.
However, Illy, I was wondering, Illy reached out to to Jody, the tourism, what's their official title?
Tourism Bowen Tourism.
Bowen.
Now I can't even remember.
It's Tourism Bowen Island.
Yeah.
They had some comments just about transportation issues, and this was a to-do item from last year. And one of them being talking about the bus ridership on the weekends in the summer when the schedule is reduced. Do we already have that ridership data? Is that available to BIMTAC?
Don't know.
I can take a look. I don't know off the top of my head.
So I guess the topic is on the weekends when there's only one bus running, and what does that ridership look like? How many full buses are we seeing?
Yeah.
And because that was some of the comments about tourists in the summer getting overloaded and
Getting stuck on the other
residents.
side and stuff.
Okay.
So I think the rest of the items are going to be deferred to the next meeting, but if that information is already available, that might help move discussions along. And
So will the action be all the bus ridership or just that one?
I'm not sure what's available in what format. If it's just a package of ridership information, then I would just request to see all of it. But if we need to make a request, then it's, I suppose it's the weekend ridership numbers in the summer months or the busier months.
Okay.
You okay with that, Natasha?
Yep. I think I'll end up doing a request for the entire year. Yeah, I'll do all of it. Yeah. It'll just be helpful data to have.
I think so.
Yeah.
And then we just have number 8, information items. Then we just have the transportation plan and island plan. Is that just normally included stuff?
Normally included.
Yeah. Then number 9, next meeting to be determined. Is that, are we going to leave it for now, or?
You wait until we find out about the properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless something comes up from council.
Yeah, I should know more, I would say, in the end of next week. So, yeah.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we could adjourn at 7:40.
Wow.
Very efficient.
That's the fastest municipal meeting I've ever seen.
There was just before we do, there was one other aspect of this multi-use path discussion that we hadn't really got into. Is it does involve, for the alignment we're talking about, acquiring some property on the east end of a number of these private lots, which is essentially an expansion of the existing park, I assume. And it's also changing the nature of an existing park from I guess, essentially a conservation nature park to a public use, a high use park. So I know we have, the active transportation aspect. We've also got a parks committee. This is another part of the discussion that we're going to have, and it will probably make sense to have that with the, I don't know what they're called, Parks and Greenways Committee or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Parks, trails, and greenways. Trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea, Patrick. Yeah.
So did you want to come to the next Parks and Trails meeting, Patrick?
Could be the next one, or yeah, I mean that would be fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Just as maybe there's something that they will think of that we haven't.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Nope, nothing on my end.
Okay, shall we adjourn?
Sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks so much.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you. Good
Thank
night.
you.
everyone.